you to get going. For those of you that have just joined that may not be familiar with what Disability Cocoon is or does, we are basically just a technology catalyst in the disability field. We go out and try to find disability technology that's out there and bring it to the disability community through in-person conferences, which we're calling tech festivals. So if that's something that you're interested in, we actually have 2 or 3 of those planned, and surprise, there's going to be a couple more coming in the next couple of years. So we're doing them all over the United States. And then obviously you're on a tech huddle right now so that you can get the content either sitting at your desk doing these things or an in-person thing. Go check out Disability Cocoon. You'll kind of see the full vision of what we're trying to build here. It's a work in progress. The new site is up, but a lot of the content hasn't been put on the new site, but you'll really get a good sense on exactly what we're trying to do here. So, and that's just disabilitycocoon.com. So, let me go through here, make sure everybody's kind of on mute. I'm going to mute everybody, and then I'm going to unmute you, Dwayne, and Chrissy, I'll leave you on mute until 12:30. So,
okay.
All right. So I've got everybody muted now. Again, if you have questions, since you're muted, just go ahead and throw them in the chat box. And I will interrupt our presenters. Dwayne, you're unmuted again.
Sounds good. Can you hear me?
I've got you. I will, I'm showing 3 after, and I want to make sure we give everybody enough time to cover what you've got. So I'll turn it over to you. This is Dwayne Temple with Night Owl Support Systems.
Support Systems. Are we ready?
Yep.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I guess it's noon in most places. It's 11 o'clock here, so it's morning in Wisconsin. I'm going to do a quick PowerPoint. Can you see that, Dustin?
Not yet. If you click the share button down right below you and then select the
Gotcha. Yep.
The window that you have open.
So I want to share my iPad. What am I doing here?
You should just be able to select the PowerPoint that you have open.
It's not letting me do that. Let me pull it up and then let me go back to your...
No, we've got it now, Dwayne. You're good.
You got it?
Yep.
All right. So we'll start from the beginning. We are Night Owl Support Systems. Who we are a bunch of people that our company was founded and developed, and it's driven by people that work with people with disabilities. I guess what I mean by that is, I hate to say it in this arena, if you will, but we're not a bunch of computer geeks that come up with some great gadgets to throw in people's homes. We're not those kind of people. We're actually people that have spent a lot of time working with people with disabilities. Many of us that work here have spent our adult lives working with people with disabilities. So that's who we are. And we're not just about the technology, but we're about creating independence, solutions, helping people, invest in a larger quality of life. In our program, I have to give some credence back to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. There's a place there, it's a USED. The Weissman Center has spent decades developing best practice programs for people with disabilities. Myself and my 2 business partners, Chris Patterson and Danielle Chilson, were hired to help develop this program, design it, and implement it. And it's been working well now for the last a little over 16 years. So it's been a fun quest. We've got to see a lot of really cool things, and we've got to help a lot of really cool people. So that's who we are. And our mission is to deliver quality in-home support using technology while becoming a valuable and meaningful part of people's lives. The only thing I can tell you is for us, there's no cookie cutter solution to using remote supports. It is, thinking outside the box. We get calls all the time for some very unique situations. And it works. We go out, we meet with people, we look at their living situation and what remote supports could bring to the table for them. And then we develop that strategy from there. But that's who we are. That's our mission statement. And so some of the goals we think of technology when we look at technology, we look at remote supports is in the independence. People have choice of where they live. I mean, regardless of the setting, many people are moving into smaller settings. It helps with that. We can help people. They don't have to have the overnight caregiver in the home to be a part of that. Obviously, when you don't have a caregiver in the home, it's going to be a cost savings. And it also addresses that workforce shortage issue that is paramount these days. I mean, there's not we work with about 95 different providers in 7 states, and there's not one of them that is not at a crisis level when it comes to workforce shortages. I mean, it really is a big issue, and I know you've all have heard it more and more. So it's a big thing. It's real, and that's what the goals for us are. How do we work with those things? So our program involves 4 components. We have the monitoring from an offsite central monitoring station. It's like a 911 call center. The alarms come in. Our staff have the tools to handle the alarms, whether it be supervising, monitoring someone use the restroom, or going to getting out of bed, doing different things, or if it requires actually opening up two-way communication, talking to the person, or if we have to send a staff over, response staff over to someone's house. So they have the tools to do that in that monitoring station. And then, of course, we have the monitoring technologies in the homes. Now, there are several providers out there that use video cameras. At this time, we do not use video cameras, but we use a sensor-based technology. And we have an audio alert system that when a sensor goes off in a home, it sends us a signal. We have the capacity at that point to open up the two-way communication. That's how our program works. And then lastly, part of that is you can have all the technology in the world you want, but you have to have a response from someone, whether it's a remote telecaregiver or if it's a staff that's 3 houses down. Someone has to be able to respond to someone. So that's the 3 parts that make up the technology piece and the response piece. But what we think is one of the most important parts is the ongoing evaluation and the oversight of each person's support by a consumer relations team. We have a number of people that get reports every morning of all the activity in people's homes. They study it, they go through it, they look for anomalies, they look for changes in behavior. Sometimes inactivity reports of people are used to get up every morning and they open their front door to get their morning paper, but maybe 2 mornings in a row we notice that they didn't open their front door, then that might be cause for alarm. So a lot of different things, but that consumer relations team is a very big part of what we do. So it's not just this invisible service like a robotic world. I mean, there's a lot of human interface with that. So the monitoring involves professional monitors, communication with staff and individuals served. When we started our program out, it was really hard for us because back in the day we would do Google searches of remote monitoring. And what we found were it wasn't anything like what we were doing. It was actually prisoners with ankle bracelets. So that's not the kind of message or the connotation that we wanted to establish. So we had to do a little more research and build a platform. And we basically we built it on the platform that we would just replace the 3rd shift staff. So we have this call-in process from about 8 o'clock at night until 11 o'clock at night where staff leave the homes. And then they call us and let us know they're leaving. We get the door alarm. We get the systems being armed. And in the morning, we have the same process. So we have this communication and this of what's going on. A lot of times what we get out of that communication is people have changes in activity where they might, they might be going to a hockey game on a given Friday night. So they'll call us and let us know. So our staff aren't expecting that person to be home at 8 o'clock. We know that they're going to be home at 11 o'clock and we wait for that alarm. And then we talk to the person. So we can do it that way. We also have people that come and go in the mornings, same type of thing. Part of our intake process is developing a support strategy. And that would be the protocols. Basically, we sit down with the team, figure out what the outcomes are, what people need, what people want, how do we address those with the technology, and then we implement those plans. And when an alarm comes in, our staff click on the alarm and up comes all this information. Basically, the whole support plan is there. If there's a script involved that we have to follow, or a plan that's out of the ordinary, all that information is there. The tools that our staff have to handle those alarms. Our system doesn't just turn off at 7 o'clock in the morning. I know the hours say from 8 o'clock till 7 o'clock. In most places, obviously, 8 o'clock in Indiana is different than 8 o'clock in Wisconsin, so we have to adjust those times. But our system doesn't just turn off. We actually can have the system generate auto alerts through a texting service. So the same alarms will be available during the daytime. So perhaps someone has alone time on a Tuesday afternoon, but the agency wants to know if they need help or if they need something, or a door alarm, whatever have you, we can actually set that up. And comes the monitoring personnel, if you will. For everything, every sensor that's in our system, we can generate reports. A lot of people move out now for the first time. People want to know what they're doing. This is no exaggeration, but we once had a gentleman that we support. He gained, I want to say 30 pounds in 4 months. And that was every time we can't say, hey, stay out of the fridge. That would be a rights restriction and restrictive measure, and we wouldn't do that. However, we can put a data tracking system up and generate reports so the team has all the times that the person got up. So maybe 13 times a night the person opened the refrigerator, then we would know that information because we could track that information. So things like that, we can study that. The teams can take that information back to the doctors and stuff and say, hey, this person's experiencing a lot of eating at night. What can we do? Or can the agency simply put down some healthy snacks at night that the person can have access to? So a lot of things you can do with the data tracking and diverse system redundancy. We actually have lots of redundancies. We have our system runs through the old-fashioned phone lines and through cellular-based stuff. But when it gets into our monitoring station, everything comes in through phone lines and internet. So we have multiple phone companies we work with. We work with multiple internet providers. So in the event one does upgrades in the middle of the night, our system still maintains that function, that resiliency. So diverse system redundancy is paramount with what we do. Some of the equipment features, they're completely wireless in the home. Again, the phone line with a cell backup, everything has a battery backup system in it in case power goes out. So the system will continue running for the duration of the night. The two-way communication is it's an elective process. We don't eavesdrop on the people we support. They have to activate an alarm in the home, sends us a signal. At that point, we can open up the two-way communication. We can't just simply purge the line and talk to the person. We can't do that. Smart sensors, they're becoming more and more smart as you guys get more and more involved with the disability cocoon. You get to see more of the gadgets that are out there people are using. It is pretty cool. They're becoming smaller and more sensitive. So they are becoming smart sensors. And they are portable and adaptable to people's homes and abilities. I mean, what we find is people's needs change all the time. And we also find out that people move all the time, or people will get roommates and other people will move. Anyway, it's portable and adaptable. So a sample of sensors we use a variety of personal pagers. With that comes fall sensors. We use door, window, security sensors, smoke detectors, bed sensors, movement sensors, flood, moisture sensors, motion sensors, thermostat sensors, fridge Caesar sensors, freezer sensors, you name it. Anything that can have a mechanical switch can be turned into a sensing device. So the responding part is, it depends on how you set it up. We work with a lot of people like in Missouri, for instance. We work with people that are part of Senate Bill 40, a self-direction component. A lot of times the family members will be their responders. We work with agencies and their staff. Sometimes they're on call or the responders. So it can be set up in a variety of different ways. And the responding stuff is basically what a staff would do. We don't provide like a medical emergency type of responding. We would call 911 in those events. But it's basically what a staff person would normally do. I mean, someone needs help going to the bathroom, they press a button and they tell us that, hey, I need help going to the bathroom. We would send someone over, again, whether it's a family member or if it's an agency personnel, and they would help that person. So again, it's all scripted back to that individual support plan that we set up in the beginning, that we tailor the supports for that home and that person. And then there are the emergency types of supports, or a lot more predictive type supports, such as we have the emergency ones, or help by phone, I can't get up kind of things. The other things are like, we actually have some agencies that do a series of checks. So maybe they have one responder home where staff stays at for the duration of the night, and that staff will leave and go check on a variety of other homes. In the course of doing that, they might check one person's blood sugar at 1 a.m. The next home, they might help someone use a Hoyer lift to go to the bathroom. But those are some of the more predictive types of supports that we talk about. So the big part of us, like we talked about before, is that we have this consumer relations department, and it really is looking through the data with a fine-tooth comb. And with that, looking at what are the outcomes? What have we looked at? What are we gaining from this? Are we helping the person live more independently? And are we meeting that? And how are we meeting that? So that's what that consumer relations team does. They set up that what are those outcomes? Are we meeting them? I mean, we hear this all the time about data this, people want data that. And for us, it really is, is that what we want, or do we really want to, categorize some really useful data and start looking at that? How do we help that person take it to the next level of independence? And that's what they do. They are that consumer relations team gathers that information. They analyze it. They sit down. They meet with the team. Sometimes it's weekly, and I'll be honest with you. In some teams, it's pretty much daily. But then we have some that we don't talk to for like maybe every 6 months. But again, it's meeting the needs of that person. Sometimes, as we all know, there are people that use the system all the time, and then there are some people that use it pretty infrequently. So that's what the consumer relations team does, and that, to us, we think that's the glue that holds our program together. How do people benefit from using remote supports? They get to continue living independently. There is safety and security. I mean, you have data to support that when people come and go. It doesn't exaggerate. It's very objective. Individualized support, privacy, and cost savings. We try to say cost savings all the time. I mean, if and when we can, we like to promote that. Places it works best, if you're replacing sleep overnight staff. I can tell you with certainty that about 99% of the people that we've supported, where we've gone in and put our system in replace of an overnight sleep staff, it has worked out wonderfully. There are duplexes side by side where an agency has staff on both sides, and maybe they want to, because of all the other job openings, or maybe someone leaves by a period of attrition, we would actually bring the monitoring system in on both sides. So if staff need to leave, they can go respond to the one house, but both houses would still be supported. That's a pretty common way to use this. And we're becoming more and more apparent in these apartment complexes. We used to share systems. Now it's more easy for us, because what we have found out is when we put shared systems in apartment complexes, what I mean by that is you might have 10 apartments in one building. We would go in and put our services in maybe 3 units, and then the other 7 apartments would share a combination of those 3 systems. But what we find out is that people move, and that really screws up the protocols. And so it's easier for us now to put a system in each home and look at things more economically, and help the agencies that are involved in those situations do things just a little bit differently, and it works. So those are some places that remote supports work, and that's all I have to say about that.
All right. Hey, thanks, Dwayne. Trying to get myself off of mute there. Any questions for Dwayne from anybody out there? Not seeing a whole lot of chatter in the chat box, but if you do have a question, feel free to throw it in there. Dwayne, I had one question for you.
Sure.
What states are you guys currently providing services in? Both you're just providing services there, and then what states are you seeing Medicaid funding through waiver programs for your services?
Okay, so 2 questions. What states are we in? Second question is what states Medicaid funding is paying for. So Right now we are in North Dakota, Wisconsin, obviously, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, North Carolina, and soon to be in, we believe, Ohio, Tennessee, and possibly Nebraska. The states that Medicaid provides funding for right now, Indiana does. North Carolina does it through the innovations waiver. North Dakota, people write it right into their individual support plan. So I'm not sure if it's an actual Medicaid dollar that's assigned to that. In Iowa, it used to be, it's a little more complex, but actually agencies contract with us in Iowa at this point. Missouri is Medicaid funded. That's what I know right now. Wisconsin is not quite Medicaid funded yet either.
So it sounds like you guys, and we have several people from Ohio, and it sounds like you guys are going to that state soon. Or yes,
we have submitted all the paperwork. We're just in the process of waiting for the approval at this point.
Okay.
So we've been reaching out to a handful of providers and counties and such, and participating in some of the county fairs and things like that. But we're waiting to get approval before we go full bore. That's all.
Okay. And I know we have some people on that are maybe not from those states that you mentioned, or may not have funding for remote supports yet in their waiver program. And I know that you and several other of the more national remote support providers are more than willing to help states kind of look at how to incorporate these types of services in their waiver programs. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We like to share what we know, if not other things too. It's a really exciting time to be a remote supports provider, as you probably well know.
Yep. It is, absolutely. And I've actually heard rumors of maybe a state coalition that's going to be formed to help these states share resources.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
Coalition.
I don't know if I could say much more about that yet, but we'll do an announcement on it and have them on here soon. So, all right. Well, I don't see any questions in the chat box for you, Dwayne. So, Dwayne, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
If you guys have questions for Dwayne, feel free to throw them in the chat box, and I'll. If Dwayne, if you need to drop off, go ahead. But
no, I'm going to listen to Chrissy's presentation.